Oh, g'day champions. We've got a UK Hiwatt custom Hiwatt 50 here. This is a bit of a strange one because it's got some circuit boards in it. Still got the quintessential wiring porn happening down there that everyone loves to see. But yeah, it's got some circuit boards. It's got caps mounted to the chassis instead of the sides of the chassis internally instead of externally. Just a few differences on this one. I'll have to do a bit of research to figure out where this stood in the scheme of things. You got two gaping holes there for the 100 watt version. This is just the 50, so it's got just the two EL34s on the outputs there. So straight away the thing's pretty dirty. It's got cockroach, well, insect droppings throughout the thing. It's just a general layer of grime and dust on the boards, so we'll clean all that off. We'll give the sockets a good clean. They look like they're in okay condition. We'll investigate the contacts on each one and make sure that they're up to scratch. Now the owner requested a recap on this, and I advise that's probably a good idea. You can see there the vent's starting to bulge a little bit in the bottom cap. So they're still functioning okay, but they're not long for this world, and the owner wanted to bulletproof this for long-term reliability, so he's quite happy to go ahead with the recap. And that includes this 3 on the other side. In some situations we might have to overshoot the voltage rating a little just to get the form factor in a cap for a reasonable cost. Chassis mounted caps, particularly sort of the higher voltage ones in this capacitance range, are getting harder and harder to find now that everything's moved to radials mounted on the circuit board. So in some situations here you've got a 350 volt, two 350 volt 220s. We might have to go with some dual section 100s and put them in parallel and then treat them like two caps. But that's probably well overrated in the voltage rating, so we probably could go a 500, but I'll have to check what the voltages are, and we'll have to leave quite a bit, at least 20% margin there. We don't want to go too close to the voltage ratings on those caps, particularly when you switch the thing straight on without being in standby, and before the valves heat up, there's a bit of a surge in voltages there that sags back down once the current's drawn. So these pots are a weird size. I've got a feeling that we've got some problems with the pots because there's some intermittency that doesn't seem to be strictly related to rotating them, but I've got a feeling that down underneath you can see where the terminals are riveted to the wafer. I think we've got some intermittency there, and you can see how corroded the casings and the legs are, so that wouldn't be too hard to believe. We've got some misaligned stuff and some missing nuts, that kind of thing, but nothing, no real biggies there, but pretty easy to sort. And the cab's pretty filthy as well, so he's opted for what we call the amp day spa, where I'll probably actually remove that whole baffle just to give it a proper clean. And maybe retension this grill cloth a little bit, if we can maybe take that off and give it a clean as well, because it's starting to go a bit wrinkly in this area, like it's a couple of the staples have let go or something. So I'll suss that out. We've got the charming old rusted hardware. We'll leave that in place, but I might temporarily remove it just to clean underneath, and we might just, anywhere where the Tolex is starting to come up, we might just glue it back down just to make sure it doesn't spread any further. And just give the thing a good old clean, eh? These baskets get really corroded and filthy. Really, you should just give your amp a bit of a vacuum every now and then just to make sure it doesn't get this bad, because that dust collects moisture, and then the moisture pits the finish, and then you start getting corrosion deeper than the plating. Actually, it looks like that cap's copped quite a hit at some point. You can see there's a big dent in there. It probably goes in by about 2 or 3 mil. There doesn't seem to be any electrical effects to that, side effects to that as of yet. And if you get any in postage that have been damaged, I'll be trying to return them while you still have the chance, and then get some new ones, because you never know. You plug them in and they might fail, or shortly down the road. Now all these terminals have the fanboy sort of anti-tamper ink on it. We're not going to bother putting that back. This thing's a workhorse. So it's a bit of a shame that you lose the originality, but by losing originality you gain functionality. And that's the name of the game here. I guess the best way to sum it up is I'm an amplifier tech, not an amplifier taxidermist. Yeah, we've got a couple of tack soldered connections there, but you know, they've lasted this long. But we'll be looking at those jacks. You can see some green corrosion there on the eyelets. Could be just from the flux, could be from moisture. So all the connections everywhere are suspect. We'll be looking over the whole thing because there is intermittency. It could be a pot, could be a jack, could be a solder connection, could be a valve socket. We'll get to the bottom of that first before we start restoring, because I like to definitively know that we solved a problem before we just go cleaning the thing up. Otherwise you might do all that cleanup and then at the end you still got the problem and you got to pull it all apart again. So we'll find that problem first and then we'll carry on and make this thing roadworthy. So I look at the top of the chassis, it's pretty clean really. Still got that shine to the zinc chromate or whatever it is. For the outputs we've got a pair of Sylvania EL34s. I went to say 6L16 because it's got the fat bottles. Fat bottle tubes. You make the rock and roll go around. So EL34 USA, very dirty. I'll have to give them a bit of a clean without disturbing the writing. Getters look healthy. Getter flashes, sorry. We've got 3 Phillips ECC 83s. We've got a 7025 in first position. I've taken the shields off. They're in a container for safekeeping. And you can see the gap there. You could stick your finger down and touch stuff if you're not careful, but you know, that's the grandfather clause. So the front panel looks in good nick. These panels survive rather well because they've actually etched through the black. It's engraved and there's white underneath. You can see there's sort of like a slight recess to where the writing is because it's actually routed in, so it never wears off like silk screening does. So these tend to stand the test of time providing you don't crack them. Looking at the edge of the laminate there, you can see it's very thin layer of black, then it's got white, then black in the middle, and then white on the other side too. It's like a full mica sort of laminate type thing. But we'll give the knobs a good wash because you know you gotta wash your knob every now and then. So let's fire the thing up and we'll demonstrate the issues that it's having if it decides to do them today, which it probably won't because the video camera's running. You know how it goes. So straight away I've plugged the input jack from the signal generator in there just to give it a bit of sine wave to annoy you guys with while we show the intermittency. But it's barely holding on, like 2 fingers and it just falls out. It doesn't feel like it's going home. Don't you want to go home? Bright's not as bad, but normal it feels a little bit more worn or something. So looking down inside the contacts of that jack, the tip doesn't quite make it to the point where the jack sort of engages with the notch. So it's not really holding the jack in place. It's like it wants to go in further. So that is a result of like a 1.2mm chassis and then probably a 3.5mm faceplate. It's thicker than the jacks are designed to deal with, so that nut isn't going all the way in and it's stopping the jack from finding its way all the way in. Not a lot we can do about that. Can't replace the faceplate, can't replace the chassis obviously, and if we replace the jack with a long bushing version it won't look authentic. So might just be, it is what it is. Survived this long with the existing jack, so what's another 30 years, 40 years. God, we're getting old. Not too old to laugh at that. So we'll flicker on with some low level signal. What's the power meter doing? Dropping to about just under 50 watts once the heaters are warmed up. Click on the standby. About 90 watts, bit of leakage there. Alright, so I'll put in some intentionally low level signal just so I can test the full range of the pots, you know. Crank them up without deafening everyone. So a bit of scratchiness there, but nothing too hectic. The bright volume is crackling when nothing's plugged in. So what's it do when we plug in? Turn the master down a bit. So nothing too dramatic. I've got a low frequency there just so it's less ear piercing to you champions. At treble is very intermittent. It's actually cutting the signal. Wow. So first thing I'll do is I'll just give them a quick clean, and then we'll test it at a higher level and see how consistent it is. Alright, so we're back in the overhead cam view. I'm just going to have a play through this thing and see if we can make it do whatever it was doing, so that there's drops of gain, intermittency, and completely cutting out from time to time, but not consistently. That's our favourite little issues, isn't it? Intermittency. So we'll play some Pure Rock Fury through it and see if we can get it to play up. Right, so the first thing I noticed is the bass control isn't doing anything, like anything at all, at any combination of settings. So that's an issue. Now I'm deaf in my right ear. This thing's fucking loud, man. I don't know what it is with Hiwatts. It's probably a combination of the bass pot not working. But they just got such a bite to them. Just so instant attack, real instant pick attack. So it's still got the character of it. There's something going on with the bass pot, and obviously whatever intermittency is happening, we've either disturbed it and now it's behaving itself and it needs further attention, otherwise it will start misbehaving in the future, or it's something that we still just haven't found yet. So I'll dig a bit deeper. Next time you see this amp, I'll have it sorted and I'll tell you what it was. So we'll bloody see you then, legends.